Here's a shot of my larch forest. It's all lit up by the sunshine. Getting towards the evening. Looks really nice. The light just kind of sculpts everything. Makes it glow.
Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I have a visitor from Australia coming down to see my bonsai. Chris has flown in from Australia and he's cycling 45 kilometers to get here. He'll tour the gardens and I'm hoping I can cycle partway home with him. It's a good excuse for me to get back on the bike. Chris has arrived.
Didn't get run over by a truck.
Arrived safely, driving a giant.
A giant
Gravel bike,
yep.
Which is pretty cool.
Good for the gravel out here. Some beautiful gravel roads.
Yeah.
Very enjoyable.
Yeah, it's nice. There is some nice quiet roads in this area that you can cycle on.
Yep.
Where you don't see a car for 10 minutes.
That's what it was like this morning. Everyone was still in bed, I think.
Was it? Yeah.
Where I live, which is in Newcastle in Australia, a very warm climate, perfect for growing figs. The native fig there is the Ficus rubiginosa, otherwise known as the Port Jackson fig,
right?
Which you don't apparently get here.
I haven't seen the Port Jackson or the, what was the other
Moreton
one?
Bay, which
the Moreton
is
Bay
from Brisbane, further north.
I've seen them in the States, but not up here.
Yeah.
So I'll have to try and get them.
Yeah, it would be good. People say that because they have a bigger leaf than the Benjamina and your other ones, they're not as popular,
right?
But with leaf defoliation, you get them right down to a decent size. They look great.
So when you say it's a warm climate, what kind of temperatures are you talking about here?
Well, I think the main difference between Canada and Australia is that we don't get a winter.
Right.
We don't cool.
So you don't get frost at all, right?
Not on the coast, because I live in a suburb called Merewether, and we're literally Merewether's a beach suburb. We're about 1 kilometre back from the beach.
So the ocean has a warming effect.
Keeps it, so we never get frost. But if you go 10 kilometres inland, you do get frost, but only -1, -2.
Yeah.
Which is great for your deciduous.
Yeah.
You know, beautiful. But figs can get burnt, but mine don't. So I'll get figs growing. Like my figs is middle of winter now. My figs are growing right now, cranking.
I can't imagine them growing all year round.
Dude, and the religiosa, rubiginosa, is they call it the ruby fig because the new leaf is this red, lovely red shoot, and looks gorgeous.
I get that on my religiosa. The new leaves are dark, kind of pinkish red color.
Yeah, so I think it's quite common to a lot of figs, that colour, but it looks beautiful and spectacular in the big trees. It's really long sort of leaf coming out. But I'm seeing that now. Like in July, where I've just come, a couple of days ago when I left them in the hands of a very capable.
That's always scary.
Grasshopper, I call him.
Yes. So what would be the maximum temperature in summer then?
So summer, I think it's more the humidity, but summer temperatures in the 30s are normal.
Okay.
So, 28 to 35, 36.
Okay.
We do have 40s and 40s plus. No fun when it gets to 40 and humid. They're usually dry from the westerly winds off the desert. So you get 42 to 45. 47's the hottest we've ever had in Newcastle.
So the moderate temperatures come in from the ocean.
Yeah, mainly we get a nice, even, moderate temperature. Therefore, perfect for growing bonsai.
Okay.
Of all shapes and sizes. Even your cold-loving spruces and don't grow as well as you guys have, but they don't. It doesn't hurt them.
They probably grow more evenly throughout the year rather than in spring getting that sudden massive growth spurt.
There's none of that.
Right?
There's no spurt. Sort of just a slow growth all year round.
Okay.
But you would look away and come back and look at a juniper, and all of a sudden it's just gone crazy. So it's that's the beauty of our climate. So I believe I'm blessed when I come to see what you have to put up with moving into the dungeon.
Like, there's always someone worse off than yourself, climate-wise.
Yeah.
I talk to people up north who are, a couple hours up north, and it gets colder. The summers are shorter. I remember I was putting my tropical trees out on the benches for the summer, and a friend of mine in Alberta said, the ground is just thawed enough I can get my trees back out of the ground.
Wow.
So I thought, wow, that's hard to believe that there's that difference in temperature ranges and that just in Canada. So So there's always someone worse off than you are. Like some people live in arid desert environments, and it's in the 40s every day and very little rain, and
I guess you just do what you can do in the climate, and you
water's
get used to
scarce.
it.
I remember a fellow in South Africa, I forget the city, but they had a severe water shortage, and he had to let his bonsai die because they couldn't afford the water to keep them alive. And I thought, wow, that's
serious.
That's eye-opening when things like that happen. Like growing bonsai is a luxury.
I think so.
I mean,
we're very lucky.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to be able to have the time to work on the trees and the resources to grow them and that.
Yep.
I mean, it's not an expensive hobby or anything, but it takes water and it takes care and that.
And interestingly, I don't know what. I'd be interested to see what your take is. I don't think I've ever been able to drown a tree in Australia because of the weather. They're just always looking for water. Always, constantly watering. Even in winter, the depths of winter. This year, as I said to you, is been good because we've had a wet season, a wet summer, a wet winter. I haven't had to water the bonsai, so that's the only time I thought, be careful, you might kill some. But normally I'd be out watering in winter because it's so dry, you don't get enough water.
I see.
Even sometimes every day, when your temperatures can get up into the 20s in winter, during the day, drop down to say 12, that would be a mild winter. We've got a cold winter this year, we're getting some rain and we're getting temperatures to 5 degrees, 4 maybe, but 4, 5, 6 degrees overnight, warm up to 15 to 20 is our normal. So it's still good growing conditions, think about it.
Oh, yeah.
But wetter, therefore being careful with the watering. But normally in winter I'm still watering, still fertilising.
See,
not so much fertilising.
Yeah, in the summer I have to water 2 or 3 times a day with some trees. And then the only time I don't have to water is either when it rains or towards fall. It starts cooling down and starts getting a little wetter, more rain. And the trees start going dormant, so the pots will just sit there and you don't have to water them.
Well, Newcastle's climate is traditionally wet summers, warm wet summers, cool dry winters. So, but I still would water probably in the high summer, not February, which is our hottest season. January, February, you're twice a day watering, depending on your soil, what soil you're using, whether it's going to hold moisture or not.
And you mentioned you're the newsletter editor for the Newcastle Club, right?
Correct.
Right. So,
and I'm looking forward to putting you in it.
Oh, thanks. And how many people would you have in the club, do you think?
Well, as I said to you, I would say over 100 members.
Right.
And we get a pretty healthy roll-up every month of about 50 people.
And what age do you think people are? Like, are they young people or older people or middle-aged? Or?
Well, if I said I was a young person, I'd say that they're mainly my age. No, we're getting. There are times when we're thinking we're getting new members, a lot of new members. The last couple of years, we've been looking at encouraging new members with beginners bonsai workshops.
Yep.
And we're hoping they're going to stay on. So they're in their 30s. Yep. There is a lot of interest in bonsai, and as you would know, a lot of naivety as well.
Yep.
And people understand that it takes a lot of thought to keep a bonsai alive.
Well, here
You know?
you need the environment. You need a place to have your trees out on a bench, and you have to be able to protect them in winter, and the tropicals have to come inside. So you can't just spur of the moment decide I'm going to grow bonsai. You have to have the conditions to grow them successfully,
That's
I guess.
And we have the same problem in Australia. There's no, I won't mention the person's name, but I did gift a tree to a friend of mine who thought it was perfectly fine to leave that tree on the kitchen table and just water it occasionally, because there was big windows, no direct sunlight, plenty of light, surely.
Yeah.
And it of course
Didn't
fell
like
over its
it.
toes, and lesson learnt. But there's a lot of new members coming along. I would imagine we've got anywhere from young 20, even teenagers, right through to very senior members in their 80s, still loving bonsai and coming along for the camaraderie, having a chat to fellow bonsai people.
And you have Bonsai N in your area with Josh, right?
Yes, Josh is.
So do you think
Josh
that
is setting up.
inspires a lot of people to get into it, or?
I think so. Having a
Yeah.
bonsai nursery close by. We've got Josh and we've got Ash down at Bonsai World down towards the Central Coast, and they've got some great stock.
And is there any other clubs in your area, or is there just the one?
The Newcastle club is only one in Newcastle, but you only have to go an hour north or 2 hours south to the Central Coast, up to Nelson's Bay has a club, Taree, a couple of hours north. Yeah, so plenty of interest in bonsai.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I think it's quite popular.
Well, I guess you're fairly close to the Japan and that, like well, you're on the opposite side, right? But
Yeah.
but it's not that far away.
You talk to a bonsai member from Newcastle Bonsai, most of them have either have aspirations to going to Japan or have been over on a tour
Right.
to looking at bonsai, as opposed to me, I only go over there to ski.
Yeah.
But
You were telling me about skiing in Japan, and that
yeah.
kind of blew me away that
Yeah.
the Japanese like skiing. I never pictured the Japanese skiing down mountains, but
they love it. They love it as much as we do.
yeah. I guess I never picture Australians skiing too much
That
either.
is exactly true. That would
That's
be
cool.
weirder than thinking that Japanese don't ski. Australians, where the hell can you ski in Australia?
And
But we do have snow.
are there a lot of Australian bonsai books? I know I was sent some Australian magazines. I forget what they're called, but they're like a soft cover.
We do have magazine, journals and stuff. They're not as popular anymore because of, I guess, the
It's all online now.
resources, but not really, no.
What do you think inspires people to get into bonsai? How do these young people, how do they find out about bonsai, and how do they, what do you think?
To be honest, I think they see an image of a bonsai somewhere, whether it's in a nursery or on a picture or something like that, and they just think it looks nice. It's
nice room.
And
What I want to
people
do.
who love the outdoors and love growing trees. They might live in a unit. And I think that might inspire them. I mean, how do you and I get interested in it? It's one of those things that it's been for years. We don't stop and think about it, but get the passion and you're hooked.
It's just something that comes from within, doesn't it?
I think it's a human nature to like trees and the natural environment, and bonsai is an extension of that.
Yeah, I think there's a nurturing aspect. I think there's an aesthetic aspect, and there's an aspect that takes you away to a different place and time.
Yes. Once you start to explain to people who don't do it that it's an art, because it is, it's artistic, it's creative, and
it can be very artistic. I think
that changes people's attitude too.
Yeah.
Plus, you're working with a real live thing, which changes every time. Bonsai never matures to the stop. You don't stop. Okay, that's as far as I go with the tree. And new beginners think that's what it is. You just grow a bonsai and there it is. But it's always.
I think that's one thing that
evolving.
I didn't like about model making is you assemble this fantastic model, it's done, and then it sits on the shelf and collects dust for the rest of its life. Whereas a bonsai, it's always fresh, and you're always new challenges, and they go through stages. Like you start off with a simple tree, and it gets more complex as it develops, and your techniques have to change, and you get better at refining the trees, and the trees look better every year, usually, not always.
Yes.
And so it's I tell people you're achieving
for perfection, and it's an unattainable goal.
Yep.
And you'll spend your whole life chasing this perfect
As long
tree.
as you realise you're never going to reach perfection,
You never get-
but you can go towards it.
You go towards it. Yeah.
Now, I've noticed in your work that you're a clip and grow person. Really let the tree speak for itself, and
Yeah.
I guess on some of my trees I do that, but I've been accused by friends who are not bonsai enthusiasts, but looking at my tree and say, "You're torturing this tree, Chris." And I have no answer for that. I don't know what the answer to say to them. They said, "No, the trees don't have feelings, so I'm not torturing them." But
That's what I tell people, and I say, if I'm torturing one tree, imagine someone mowing their lawn, cutting the heads off thousands of blades of grass, millions of blades of grass, and
Yeah.
they're the worst torture, aren't they?
to be honest, I think they're just having a go at me and my passion.
I think a lot of people have the opinion that a tree shapes itself, and that why would you wire the tree into something, a position that it doesn't want to grow in? And it all depends what style you want. I mean, wiring is and I don't think they realize the wiring's temporary either, that the tree sets in that position. I think we like bending branches, manipulating trees, and
Get that shape.
there is a
looks
certain
nice.
element of that, but I think you're also kind of working with nature, guiding it.
Yep. Plus, also, I mean, in nature, the tree changes shape with storms and
Yeah.
drought and lightning.
Exactly.
And, other
Gravity.
trees hitting against it or growing up against it, it'll all change.
Yeah, and just the weight of the limbs can
all that
cause
stuff.
them to break or
True.
bend, and
Yep.
we're just trying to get that feeling in our trees, that natural look.
Well, I mean, I guess to talk about why we do this, the answer simply is we're making a 5-year-old tree look like a 50-year-old tree. That's the reality of it all.
Yeah,
To make a 5-year-old tree look a 50-year-old tree just by putting it in a pot and not doing anything to it, it just won't happen.
yeah,
So by manipulating it to look like it's been in the pot for 100 years, not 5 years, I think is a craft,
yeah,
and enjoyable craft at that.
yeah. And I think it also gives you a unique look at the tree itself, that you see the buds developing and you see the flowers developing and the fruit. And on a full-size tree, you might just walk by and never notice the little subtle changes to the tree. Whereas when it's in a bonsai form, you see every little detail because you're inspecting it almost every day, and so you get to see species of trees grow up and mature that you wouldn't. I mean, I could see a ficus grow up and mature in a pot,
Yeah,
but I'll never see
natural.
one growing naturally around this area.
that's true.
I'd have to travel to Australia to see a great ficus.
Correct.
So it allows me to kind of experience the life cycle of a tree
When you
over a shorter period of time.
yeah, well, that makes perfectly good sense to me.
And it kind of takes you away too. Like you can create a forest or a single tree and it reminds you of being somewhere.
Yeah.
These might remind you of cycling through the
Very much what I went
back roads
through.
of Ontario or somewhere.
Yes, so very much what I went through this morning.
Yeah.
I wanted to stop every 5 metres to take another photo of a different tree. It was very impressive because you don't see this growing naturally in Australia.
Right.
So it was lovely.
You most of your trees would be growing along riverbanks and that, would they? Or
It depends. Yeah, like
Depends.
if you put in
City
a natural
trees.
forest would be full of Australian
Okay.
native trees, but like your country right here in the Waterloo region is mainly farmland. So most of the trees in Australia in farmland communities are up against fence lines or wrong roadways or waterways. Yeah.
Well, it used to be common, a typical farm in Ontario, you would have, quite an area of bush, and that would be your firewood, and you would leave that section alone. And that's where the animals lived, and then you farmed on this land. But I think that bush area is getting smaller and smaller these days.
Well, I've noticed the difference between, that is one significant difference I've noticed in urban development in this area
Yeah.
compared to urban development in Newcastle. Newcastle and Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, very similar to Newcastle, Lake Macquarie, Maitland. Big sort of cities in their own right, just outside of the major capital city.
I
So
see.
we're just outside of Sydney. You guys are just out of Toronto.
Yeah.
But then there's nowhere in Newcastle can I go out my door and walk 100 metres and go into a walkway, pathway surrounded by trees,
Okay.
and bushland,
Yeah.
and ride a bike through there.
Like a
for example.
natural area.
Yeah, which has been left aside deliberately in between the urban development.
Yeah.
And Waterloo, where I'm staying at the moment, is full of that. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And you will not get that in Australia.
I see.
Or not that, especially any new urban development. It's just how closely can we put these houses together, and everything else goes.
Maybe the wildfires too have something to do with that. I don't know.
Oh no, I don't think so. I think it's
Have you had wildfires in your area?
not in as close as
That was
where we
further
live.
south,
So-
right?
Well,
Or no?
west of us. So
West.
there's plenty of bushland there.
Okay.
Yeah, and dry.
Yeah.
Just dry.
Yeah.
And I guess and farmland and small remnant forests slow it down a little bit
I see.
in the build-up areas.
Yeah.
But people still light fires close to the build-up areas.
I know. Well,
That
we
can be
have
dangerous.
wildfires that happen in Canada. There's some raging out now out west, and we had. I was driving back from Toronto the other day, last week, and I saw this haze in the air, and I just thought it was the pollution of Toronto, but it wasn't. It was the
It's
wildfire
the
smoke. And
Yeah.
kinda,
Well, Sydney last 2 years ago when we had those fires that were
Yeah.
nationally, world televised around the world, and having Sydney in that yellow, dark smoke was not normal because the smoke doesn't blow in that direction.
Right.
It just happened to be a big fire west of Sydney in a large national park, and they joined up, 2 or 3 joined up to make a massive fire, and the wind pushed across into the city. Which was great in one respect because the 3 or 4 million, I don't know how many million people in Sydney are, there probably more than that now, 4 million people of Sydney realise this is serious. We need to support
it's
all
kind
these
of
people.
eerie. I find it's almost like surreal, the look of the sky in that, and it's almost impending doom coming in on you or something.
I think what surprised me was not being able to see the Harbour Bridge in those images and,
I see.
and the Opera House, which is the iconic Sydney waterline. It was just
Hazed out, eh?
Yeah, wow. Amazing.
So how many years have you been into bonsai then?
I would say having a bonsai collection, I would have to say 10.
Okay,
But I had one bonsai I got when I was 30 and
right.
tried to kill it 4 or 5 times, and it still survived. So it's got
That's good.
It's got to be my pride of place eventually when I get it looking good. But yeah,
Well,
so that's 10 years.
it's a nice hobby for retirement too, isn't it?
It's a lovely hobby.
I find the people are really nice.
Yeah.
Most
Yeah.
of them. You get the odd person who's into bonsai to have the most impressive tree. The guy that is very competitive and wants the best tree at the show and wants the attention and that. But most people are really down to earth, and I
They
get
are.
along with them really well.
Well, we are very lucky because we've got those personalities in our group.
Yeah.
And in your KW Bonsai Society, Newcastle Bonsai Society, you talk to pretty much anyone. They're all interested to talk to you about
Yeah.
bonsai
Yeah.
and their bonsai and your bonsai. That's what makes it a good club, I think.
Yeah.
And we've got an interest group as well. A couple of people get together and go and visit each person's place, and we have a
Nice.
tour of their backyard or whatever, and have a look at their bonsai, and then we either work on bonsai or offer suggestions, and
Yeah.
it's great fun.
Yeah.
Really good fun.
Yeah, I think if the distances weren't so big in Ontario here, I think you'd have more interaction between bonsai people. But unfortunately, it takes a lot of traveling to visit all the different clubs and that. And so I just basically see them at shows, which hopefully will be starting up again.
Yes.
Was everything shut down in your area?
Well, Newcastle, I think we've dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
Every time it goes out of hand and they lock things down, Newcastle seem to avoid it,
Okay.
which has been really, really good.
Yeah.
Having said that, this particular issue at the moment where Sydney's in lockdown, it's literally 2 hours away. It's not far at all, so it may very well happen.
Yeah.
I don't know, but we haven't. It's mask wearing, but still being able to keep a reasonably good social interaction, following the rules, of course,
Yeah, I think
which is great.
in our club, the KW club, we encourage every member to show a tree no matter what
Yeah.
developmental state it's in.
Yeah.
You know, it might be they might have been into bonsai for 3 months,
Yeah.
and they'll bring
Yeah.
their first little tree.
It's not an easy thing to do.
No,
I don't know if you've tried to encourage people. It doesn't matter. Bring it along.
Yeah,
Put it on
and
display.
you know, make it look as best it can
Yeah.
in the show.
And we'll help you. Yeah.
The funny thing is that when people come to the show, all the people who are thinking of getting into bonsai, they look more at this little tree that's just starting
Yeah.
out its life,
Yeah.
and they'll talk to that person about it because they're on the same level.
Yeah. Yeah.
They won't come talk to someone who's got this
Yes.
fantastic old
I see.
Japanese maple or something.
Interesting.
I mean, that person's on a different level, so they won't talk to those people, but they'll talk to the person with the little starter tree, and they can relate to them, and it's fantastic. So that's why I think these club level shows are fantastic for getting people into the club, and that they feel welcome, and they see trees that aren't, 40, 50 years old or anything like that. They're kind of beginner trees. And
I'm talking to a lot of our. We've got some quite amazing bonsai artists in our group,
yeah.
and they're recognised as tutors, and they can give us incredible knowledge. But there's another level underneath that. People have been bonsaiing as long as I have, which is not long, but long enough to have knowledge on how to manipulate trees or give advice and talk about your tree and then relate it to someone else's tree. There's plenty of that, and I think if we tap into that, those people could appeal to that group of up-and-comings who are wanting to know, because they won't be intimidated by their tree, because it's not the iconic perfect tree that's been established over many years. So yeah, it's something that I'd like to really pursue as a committee member of our group. I think it's important.
Our club, we're doing online meetings, and it starts at 6:30. The first half hour is devoted to beginners, and it's more of a social, bring your tree, show it, for suggestions and that. And then the kind of official meeting starts at 7, where you get into the real depths of techniques and species and things like that. So I find that's a good way that people, the people just starting out can come hang out with other people who are new to the hobby and discuss their trees and that, and then the more mature or members that have been there longer join in at 7 and get the real action going.
Well, my one time that I went to your club, which is a couple of years ago now,
I remember that.
It was you guys talked a lot about lights and heating for winter. Winter hibernation, I guess you'd say.
Right, I remember.
And
that,
it was like straight over my head, because I just don't do it. So
it's stuff you don't need.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, wow, this is so complex, and it was. It seemed to be a real science in getting that environment for a tree that's going to spend 6 months. In ice.
Under lights and the.
That impressed me.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I find there's a lot of information out there in bonsai, and you kind of pick what's applicable to you. Like, I don't use a lot of wiring or almost no wiring in my trees. So when I see a talk on wiring, it's like, well, I can learn how to wire, but I'm not going to use it much. Or sometimes grafting. I'm not a big fan of grafting. I try and, to me, part of the bonsai is, when I look at a bonsai, I want to know that the tree almost grew like that. I don't want to be impressed with small leaves if there's small leaves grafted on the tree. Like, it's almost too much manipulation. It's almost like Hollywood plastic surgery. When you see someone and you have to start questioning, well, is that real or not? To me, that takes the fun out of it. I would rather just look at a natural person, and that's the way they are.
Well, Nigel, I can see that here with all of your trees.
And that's
not, achieve that.
That's my philosophy, and it's the way I grow trees. But there's a lot of people, there's a level of manipulation where you feel comfortable with. I mean, some people graft roots in, they graft foliage on the tree, they heavily wire and bend the trees, and there's style in your trees. There's like formal uprights, slanting, broom style, but there's also style and technique. There's people like me, clipping growers, there's grafters, there's people who wire, and so I know a guy who uses no tools. So he grows his trees, everything is done with his hands. So if he wants to shorten a branch, he breaks it. If he can pinch the shoots out, roots, he'll actually rip the root off. And it's a style. And I saw his trees, and they were like something I'd never seen before, and it was
Wow.
It was refreshing.
And that's each to his own too, isn't it? Like that's the way he wants to do it, and he's obviously liking it and enjoying it and getting success with it.
And he was getting good at it.
That's very important.
So, I think
I try to keep the manipulation I do. And obviously, I'm a wirer and a bender.
Yeah.
I don't know about grafting, but I like to look at what the tree looked like in real life.
Yeah.
This is its shape, and try to keep within those constraints. Like we talk about the fig tree, the big fig tree with this massive big extension. I mean, the banyan style, for example, with the drop down. But there was one in Hawaii in this marketplace, and it covered probably an acre.
Wow.
One tree, but it kept dropping these area roots, and the area roots were
they were the size of a tree trunk itself.
Incredible, and that's a style that well, you can do that and manipulate that and create that in the tree this size. You can do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But you do have to manipulate it.
Yes.
So
A bonsai doesn't grow all by itself unless it's in the perfect
and like
growing in
these
a
trees here,
pocket of a rock.
You can't really do much more than this. I mean, you could probably put a bit of bend in it when it's young if you wanted to, but you've got the natural bend anyway. And all of these things have come out and grow. And that to me suits that kind of tree. For sure.
Well, when I was getting into bonsai, I was exposed to this book on penjing, the clip and grow Ling Yang style, and those trees really spoke to me. I thought I loved all the little subtle movements in the branches and the taper.
So I saw the opposite to that. I thought it was heavily manipulated penjing.
Oh, really?
Because you have this tree that all of a sudden does this great big swooping dive, and then it was zigzag.
Yeah, right.
This way. And
well,
90
there
degrees
is
almost purposely. In some of them, most other styles it's different. But you're saying
there's a lot of different schools of penjing, and some are very manipulated.
Right, they're the ones I thought, the ones I saw, which were like deliberately. Yeah. Like almost they break the tree and everything.
Most people, when they see Chinese bonsai, they see that highly overstyled, where the bonsai looks like an animal, or it looks like Chinese characters, or steps to heaven, and they go, whoa, that doesn't look like a tree. That's
or the trees,
bonsai.
Probably the Japanese. Not the Japanese do it, but someone who tries to manipulate a pine or something like that by doing circles.
Right.
You know, like it just is just, I shudder to see when I see this full circle or a deliberately, and it happens with figs in Asia. They do pluses and that sort of thing. Well, more like a topiary.
I've seen
don't like
ficus pruned to look like a pine tree, where they're conical shape, very layered, and it drives me nuts.
Interestingly, though, I have an argument with that nearly every meeting with someone.
Oh, do you?
Who's not a beginner, but someone who's stylized a tree and it looks like a pine tree.
Right.
Same with African olives, which grow nuts in Australia. The olive was probably an olive grove, and the rootstock was the African olive, and it's gone wild, and then it's spread its seed everywhere. I don't know if you get that here in Canada. So there's lots and lots of African olive, which make great bonsai, but they a tree like this.
Right.
Most people do a tree like that.
I think I've seen a lot of bonsai artists from other countries come to Australia, and I find the Australians don't really relate to the type of trees they're growing because they don't see those kind of trees in Australia. So, the shallow canopy trees and that.
People in Australia tend to copy.
Yeah.
Like you say, from looking at Japanese style.
Okay.
They copy that first, and then what Australian people don't do enough of is look at an Australian native like a eucalypt.
Right. Yes.
A eucalypt has a completely different shape.
Oh, they're
cannot
beautiful.
manipulate it into a pine tree. It's got this amazing growth and a lot of bare trunk growth at the bottom, but multi-trunk type of arrangement. It looks spectacular.
Yeah.
But no, a lot of people don't like that because it takes a lot of time to manipulate, and it's a different animal.
And it's not what they think of as bonsai, is it? But I think, well, maybe I hope that the world, each country develops their own style with native trees, and I tell people it's like going to malls and that every mall's got the same stores and they're all the same.
Well, that's true. Yeah, right.
I like every country to have their own style. I like Canadian
Well, every
plantings.
person to have their own style.
Yeah,
too.
or a person, yeah. Or a mix. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
See, there's a fellow called Hugh Grant. He's in Sydney. He's an educator,
Okay.
a bonsai educator. So he's making more money in running classes and workshops and stuff like that.
Okay.
And he goes to clubs, etc., and he charges a fee. And a group of us, well, 3 of us, went up to see his display in Katoomba. And Katoomba's behind Sydney in the mountains, the Blue Mountains, and they do get snow up there.
Okay.
Which is probably 2 or 3 times a year they get a snow flurry, and his mantra is we need to develop a unique Australian style based on the trees we get. It's not just eucalypts, there's a whole range of different species that have all these different characteristics. And
The mallee trees, Melaleuca? is it?
Melaleuca, yeah.
Melaleuca.
Yeah, Melaleuca. Yeah.
They're cool.
Yeah, and what we call the paper bark tree. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's all these other ones in the bush which just and he goes and gets them. He goes to Tasmania to get them with a friend, which is a long way to go to get. So he charges, gets them out, sets them up. He doesn't manipulate them. He doesn't bend them, or he just puts them in he might do it as a cascade or something, where it might have been vertical. Just changes it a little bit, puts the right pot, and sells them. And that's where these other sidelines selling and making money. But the trees he had there when we went were all these Australian natives, and they look spectacular.
Cool.
And they definitely didn't look like they'd been shaped.
No, which I find is refreshing. I like variety. I mean, I find in South Africa too, they're developing a lot of South African trees in their style. That canopy style, the flat canopy, and it's nice to see. And I hope that trend continues. That each country starts developing its own trees in their own style, and these trees start getting passed down to people rather than just.
It was fantastic having Chris down all the way from Newcastle, Australia. And we toured the bonsai gardens and talked lots. And now we're off cycling. So I'm going to ride partway home with Chris. I haven't ridden in a while, so it'll be a bit of a challenge, but it'll be a lot of fun. So thanks for coming down, Chris.
Great meeting you, Nigel, and we'll keep in touch.
Okay, sounds
Excellent.
good.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Send me a copy of your newsletter.
Will do.
Okay.
We're on.
All right.
Okay.